Have you ever had the feeling of entering a room and sensing that something has changed, even without anyone saying a single word? As if people continued smiling, complimenting and being polite, but there was an invisible tension in the air? Most people believe that if they act correctly, work hard, and treat everyone with respect, they will naturally be admired. But what if that belief is wrong? What if your best qualities are precisely what awaken feelings that no one admits aloud? It may seem controversial, but Machiavelli understood a truth that remains uncomfortably relevant today. Many people are not bothered by their flaws, they are bothered by their qualities. Their discipline reminds them of their lack of discipline. Their courage exposes the fears they hide. Their evolution reveals dreams they abandoned along the way. And that is precisely why resentment rarely appears openly. It disguises itself as friendship, well-intentioned advice, and even praise. The most curious thing is that most people go through life without realizing this game. They confuse friendliness with loyalty, closeness with trust, and kind words with sincere intentions. Meanwhile, they continue trying to win the approval of people who, deep down, never wanted to see them grow beyond a certain limit. In this video, you'll discover why silent hatred is far more common than it seems, how to identify the masks people wear to hide their true intentions, and which principles inspired by Machiavelli can help you see reality more clearly. Because once someone learns to observe human nature without illusions, it becomes impossible to see the world the same way again. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. The smiling mask. There's an illusion that accompanies almost everyone who starts to grow in life. The belief that they are surrounded by sincere supporters. For a long time, many believe that praise is proof of admiration, smiles are signs of friendship, and kind words represent loyalty. But reality often works differently. Machiavelli observed that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires seeing people as they are, not as we would like them to be. That's why someone can applaud an achievement in public and feel discomfort in silence. They can celebrate a victory while, inwardly, comparing their own stagnation to someone else's progress. Human nature is rarely as simple as it seems. Often, envy doesn't present itself with the face of an enemy. It arrives dressed in sympathy, politeness, and cordiality. And precisely for that reason, it goes unnoticed. Those who learn this dynamic early on cease to be naive without needing to become bitter. After all, not every smile is fake, but believing that all smiles are sincere is usually a costly mistake. And the more one grows, the more one realizes that the appearance of virtue often hides emotions that would never be confessed aloud. Imagine a common situation. A person receives a promotion, starts a business, or begins to gain recognition. Suddenly, the praise increases, messages appear, and compliments multiply. At first glance, it seems like support. But as time passes, some attitudes begin to tell a different story. Certain invitations disappear. Some people become strangely distant. Seemingly innocent comments carry subtle provocations. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature are safer than romantic interpretations of reality. Therefore, those who wish to understand the world need to learn to observe beyond words. The truth is that many people don't hate success, they hate the contrast it creates. When someone evolves, they make visible what others have abandoned, postponed, or been afraid to pursue. And this discomfort often generates silent resentment. Curiously, it rarely appears directly. It emerges in discreet gestures, strategic absences, and subtle changes in behavior. It is at this point that a fundamental question arises. If words don't always reveal the truth, then where can it really be found? The first law of the mask. There's an unspoken rule that separates naive people from truly observant ones. Never judge someone solely by what they say. Words are cheap, promises are easy. Declarations of friendship cost little. What truly reveals a person's essence is their behavior when there's no advantage in appearing good. Machiavelli understood this deeply. His vision of politics, guided by reality, not ideals, taught that the truth of relationships lies in actions repeated over time. Anyone can say they support your dreams while everything remains the same. Anyone can claim to want your success when it still seems distant. The real test happens when something changes. When your name begins to be recognized, when your influence grows, when opportunities arise. It is at this moment that the masks begin to slip. The person who seemed to celebrate your achievements may show disguised irritation. The one who promised to be by your side may disappear without explanation, and those who only observe words rarely perceive these signs. But those who understand human nature learn to see far beyond the speeches. A simple exercise can reveal more about someone than years of shared experiences. Observe people's behavior in 3 specific situations: when you fail, when you are absent, and when you succeed. When you fail, who stays close without gaining anything in return? When you are not present, who protects your reputation? And when you succeed, who demonstrates genuine joy instead of silent discomfort? These answers are worth more than 1,000 declarations of loyalty. Machiavelli spoke of virtù and fortuna to show that success depends as much on individual ability as on circumstances. But there is another important detail. Success also reveals the character of the people around you. Some approach out of self-interest. Others distance themselves out of resentment. Some try to compete silently. Others simply root for you. The difference rarely appears in words. It emerges in small gestures that go unnoticed by those who live distracted. And the more someone learns to observe patterns instead of speeches, the more they begin to perceive something uncomfortable. Perhaps many of the loyalties they believed in were never as solid as they seemed. The illusion of loyalty. Few beliefs cause as much disappointment as the idea that time, proximity, or kinship guarantee loyalty. From an early age, many people learn that old friends are trustworthy, that family will always be there for them, and that years of shared experiences create unbreakable bonds. It sounds nice, but Machiavelli warned of an uncomfortable principle. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires observing what sustains a relationship, not just its appearance. In most human interactions, there is an exchange, even when it is not declared. Some people offer companionship in search of belonging. Others offer support, hoping for recognition. Some remain close because of convenience, status, or mutual benefit. This doesn't necessarily make anyone bad. It only makes human nature more complex than tales of absolute loyalty usually admit. The problem arises when someone confuses habit with commitment, proximity with fidelity, and shared experiences with character. The appearance of virtue can make a relationship seem solid for years, while its real structure depends only on favorable circumstances. And circumstances, as we know, change rapidly. Just observe how many friendships disappear when money enters the picture, how many relationships change when a better opportunity arises, And how many family ties falter in the face of inheritances, business deals, or disputes over recognition. The truth rarely reveals itself during periods of stability. It emerges when interests clash. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature require analyzing incentives before analyzing rhetoric. Therefore, a powerful question is, if all the benefits disappeared today, who would remain tomorrow? The answer is usually smaller than most imagine, and this shouldn't generate bitterness, but clarity. Those who understand this dynamic stop expecting automatic loyalty and begin to value concrete demonstrations of character. They observe consistency. They observe sacrifices. They observe who remains present when there is no visible advantage. This strategic perspective doesn't create paranoia, it creates discernment, because true loyalty isn't proven in easy times. It appears when there is a cost to remaining by someone's side. And it is precisely at this point that many people begin to discover something even more intriguing. Sometimes, those who most resist their growth are not strangers, but people who have walked alongside them for years. Why do they hate you for no reason? One of the strangest discoveries of adult life is realizing that not all resentment stems from something that has been done. Sometimes someone is simply bothered by what another person represents. This seems unfair, but it happens frequently. Machiavelli understood that human emotions don't always follow the logic of justice or reason. Often, they follow silent comparisons. When a person develops discipline, creates new habits, improves their financial situation, strengthens their mind, or learns to better control their emotions, they become a mirror, and mirrors can be uncomfortable. They reflect possibilities that were ignored, goals that were abandoned, and potential that was left behind. That's why someone can be criticized not for their mistakes, but for their successes. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that not everyone will celebrate your progress. Some will admire it, others will be inspired. But there will be those who will see your progress as a silent accusation against their own stagnation. And curiously, this feeling will rarely be admitted directly. He often hides behind jokes, excessive criticism, or seemingly innocent comments. Imagine two people who started at the same point. One decides to wake up earlier, study, take care of their health, and take on difficult responsibilities. The other maintains the same habits for years. Over time, the distance between them grows. In this scenario, it would be easier to recognize one's own inaction and change, but not everyone chooses this path. Some prefer to transform frustration into resentment. That's where a silent form of hostility is born. Machiavelli observed that the calculated use of force applies not only to political power, but also to emotional dominance. Those who understand human dynamics don't waste energy trying to please everyone. They understand that certain types of rejection are simply natural consequences of growth. In many cases, hatred is not proof of failure. It's a receipt for evolution. This doesn't mean seeking conflict or acting arrogantly. It means understanding that progress inevitably alters how some people perceive you. The more someone develops virtù and fortuna, the more admiration they arouse in some and discomfort in others. And when this discomfort grows, it rarely remains solely in the realm of emotions. In some cases, it begins to transform into subtle actions, difficult to perceive at first glance, but capable of causing profound damage. The silent betrayals. When people imagine betrayal, they usually think of a declared enemy, someone who openly and predictably demonstrates opposition. But reality rarely works that way. The deepest blows almost never come from outsiders. They arise from those who know your fears, your plans, your weaknesses, and your dreams. Machiavelli understood that the greatest risks for any leader are usually not at the borders of the kingdom, but within its own walls. The same logic applies to life. That's why so many disappointments arise in romantic relationships, old friendships, partnerships, and even family ties. The more access someone has to your life, the greater their ability to influence it for good or ill. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires accepting an uncomfortable truth. Proximity is no guarantee of good intentions. Many people stay close while everything works in their favor. But when envy, resentment, or conflicting interests arise, the dynamic changes. And because intimacy exists, the signs are often ignored for too long. After all, nobody likes to believe that someone close to them might be acting against their interests. Silent betrayals rarely begin with grand attacks. They are born in small behaviors. A demotivating comment repeated several times, criticism disguised as advice, information shared with others, a subtle attempt to diminish an achievement, constant encouragement to remain in one's comfort zone. It's precisely this subtlety that makes everything so dangerous. Machiavelli taught the importance of decisions based on real human nature, and this includes observing patterns rather than isolated episodes. When someone genuinely roots for another person's growth, their attitudes tend to strengthen, support, and propel them forward. When the goal is sabotage, even unconsciously, the effect is usually the opposite. A practical example is paying attention to how people react to your future plans. Do they ask constructive questions or immediately point out reasons to give up? Do they show enthusiasm or seem uncomfortable? The real problem is not honest criticism, but constant criticism that always pushes towards stagnation. And those who learn to recognize these signs begin to realize something powerful. Often, the best defense is not direct confrontation. There is an even more effective strategy, quieter and much more difficult for others to control. The power of indifference. Few things liberate a person as much as realizing they don't need anyone's approval to keep moving forward. For much of their lives, many become prisoners of others' opinions without even noticing. They adjust their behavior to please, hide their ambitions to avoid criticism, and downplay their achievements to avoid causing discomfort to others. The problem is that those who constantly seek validation relinquish control over their emotions to others. Machiavelli understood that power begins when someone ceases to depend on what they cannot control. Therefore, politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches an important lesson. The opinion of others is a factor, but it should never be the steering wheel of your life. The more a person needs to be accepted, the more predictable they become. And the more predictable they are, the more easily they can be manipulated. The constant need for approval creates invisible vulnerabilities. A single compliment is enough to steer them. A single criticism is enough to paralyze them. It is precisely at this point that intelligent indifference transforms into one of the greatest sources of personal strength. But it's important to understand that indifference doesn't mean emotional coldness or contempt for people. It means not depending on them to validate your identity. Imagine someone who publishes a project, starts a business, or begins a physical transformation. If their motivation depends on applause, they will only move forward as long as they are praised. However, if their motivation is linked to internal principles, they will continue moving forward even when no one is watching. Machiavelli spoke of virtù and fortuna to highlight the importance of inner strength in the face of the world's changes. And there is a practical way to develop this skill. Gradually reduce the need for explanations. Not every plan needs to be announced. Not every goal needs to be shared. Not every achievement requires collective approval. When someone learns to act in silence, something curious happens. Criticism loses its power. Provocations cease to generate a reaction. Attempts at manipulation begin to fail. It's as if the person becomes harder to read, harder to control, and, in a way, freer. And it is precisely in this freedom that a new way of seeing human relationships is born, a more strategic, colder perspective, and much closer to what Machiavelli observed about the true nature of people. The Machiavellian mind. Most people spend their lives listening to what others say. Very few learn to observe what they truly desire. And this difference changes everything. Machiavelli built his worldview understanding that human beings rarely reveal their intentions completely. Often words serve to protect interests, preserve reputations, or avoid conflict. Therefore, those who wish to understand reality need to develop a rare skill, listening beyond the discourse. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires abandoning naive interpretations and beginning to analyze motivations. When someone offers praise, the attentive observer asks themselves what lies behind it. When someone offers help, they seek to understand what interests may be involved. This does not mean distrusting everything or living in a permanent state of paranoia. It means recognizing that human nature is complex. People often act driven by desires, fears, ambitions, and needs that they do not always consciously admit. And those who learn to see these invisible driving forces begin to interpret the world with much greater precision than those who limit themselves to the surface of words. But the truly strategic mind doesn't just observe others, it observes itself with the same honesty. This is the point many ignore. It's easy to identify others' interests. It's difficult to recognize one's own. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on true human nature begin with self-knowledge. A person who doesn't understand their emotional weaknesses becomes vulnerable to manipulation. Those who don't recognize their shortcomings seek approval where they shouldn't. Those who don't admit their fears make impulsive decisions to avoid them. A simple exercise is to analyze situations that provoke intense emotional reactions. Why does a certain criticism bother you so much? Why does a certain person's approval seem so important? Why do some rejections remain in memory for years? These questions reveal more than many imagine. The development of virtù and fortuna depends precisely on this ability to understand both the board and the player. And when someone begins to see people, situations, and themselves through this cold, strategic lens, a silent transformation begins. It doesn't happen in public. It doesn't receive applause. It doesn't generate immediate recognition. But it completely changes the way life will be conducted from then on. The cold transformation. There comes a point in life when some people realize they can't remain the same version of themselves if they want to achieve different results. It's at this moment that the most difficult transformation of all begins. Not the one that happens in front of cameras, applause, or social media, but the one that happens in silence, away from prying eyes and validation. Machiavelli understood that the most powerful changes are rarely announced. They are built, brick by brick, habit by habit. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires abandoning the fantasy that evolution will be comfortable. Every true reconstruction requires letting go of old patterns. Some friendships cease to make sense. Certain environments need to be abandoned. Certain behaviors need to die so that others can be born, and this process is almost always solitary. Because while many seek immediate recognition, those who are truly evolving are usually too busy working to be seen. Transformation doesn't happen when someone decides to change. It happens when that decision is repeated daily, especially on days when no one is watching. Cold. Transformation reaches all areas of life. The body changes when discipline replaces excuses. The mind changes when learning replaces constant distraction. Speech changes when emotions cease to control every reaction. Personal patterns change when responsibility takes the place of justifications. A simple example can be seen in someone who decides to develop their intellectual capacity. Instead of spending hours consuming empty content, they begin to study works that explore strategy, human behavior, and leadership. Books like The Prince, Meditations, and The 48 Laws of Power become tools for mental construction. Gradually, the person begins to see patterns that previously went unnoticed. They develop constant adaptability in the face of challenges. They learn when to speak and when to remain silent. They discover that the true calculated use of force often consists of not reacting. And the more this reconstruction advances, the more evident a truth that few accept becomes. Every great transformation comes at a price. The question is not whether there is a cost. The question is who is willing to pay it to the end. The final awakening. There comes a point when a person understands something that completely changes their way of seeing the world. There is no path to growth without some degree of rejection. There is no evolution without discomfort. There is no strengthening without losses. For a long time, many have tried to find a formula that allows them to grow, prosper, be admired, and at the same time, please everyone. But this formula simply does not exist. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires accepting what the majority prefers to deny. The more someone develops their abilities, the more they stand out. The more they stand out, the more reactions they provoke. Some will be positive, others will not, and both are part of the same process. The mistake lies in believing that all criticism is a sign of failure or that all rejection means something is wrong. In many cases, they only indicate that the person has left the place where everyone expected them to remain. True freedom arises when one stops measuring their worth by external opinions and begins to build it on internal principles. It is at this point that a force difficult to manipulate is born, because it no longer depends on the approval of others to exist. Throughout this journey, it became clear that human nature is more complex than it seems. The appearance of virtue doesn't always reveal sincere intentions. Loyalty often needs to be tested. Resentment can arise in the face of success. Betrayals often come from where they are least expected, and emotional independence becomes one of the greatest forms of power. Machiavelli taught that it is better to be feared than loved, but he also warned of the importance of avoiding being hated. This balance remains relevant because it shows that strength does not mean aggression, but rather self-control. True power is born when someone develops virtù and fortuna, builds their own loyal armies in their own life, solid habits, firm principles, and constant discipline, and maintains constant adaptability in the face of the world's inevitable changes. Now, the question is no longer about who likes you or who criticizes you in secret. The question is different. What will you do with this knowledge? In which part of this journey did you most recognize yourself? And what mask did you begin to see after hearing all this? Share your reflection in the comments, leave a like so that more people can access this message. And subscribe to the channel to continue exploring ideas that few dare to discuss, but that can completely transform the way you see life. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that this content wasn't about distrusting everyone or living in a constant state of defensiveness. It was about seeing reality as it is. Machiavelli understood that those who ignore human nature end up becoming its victims. Those who learn to observe it clearly, however, begin to make smarter decisions, build stronger relationships, and protect what takes years to achieve. Now, let's reflect honestly. How many times have you confused friendliness with loyalty? How many times have you ignored obvious signs because you wanted to believe that a certain person was on your side? And more importantly, how many opportunities have you let slip away for fear of the opinion of someone who was never truly committed to your growth? Perhaps the biggest change isn't discovering who secretly hates you. Perhaps it's realizing that it doesn't matter as much as you thought. What truly matters is developing enough strength to keep moving forward even when you don't receive applause, recognition, or approval. After all, your life will be built on your choices, not on the opinions others have about them. So write in the comments, what was the most powerful lesson you learned from this video? Is there someone in your life that you've come to see differently after this reflection? I want to read your answer. If this content gave you a new perspective, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you will continue learning about strategy, human behavior, power, influence, and the principles that can help you navigate the world with much more clarity and intelligence. The next transformation begins when knowledge ceases to be merely information and becomes action.